Thank you so much, Aneka Van, the Director General of Rights and Accountability in Development Rights, RAIDS, so that we can talk about the Tanzanian case where 21 Tanzanians have sued Barrick Gold over alleged abuse at the mine in that particular country. So let's start by you telling us what is the role of your organization in this particular case.
Well, so RAID, my organization, we certainly support the Tanzanian individuals who've decided to take legal action against Barrick Gold in Canada. Now, we're not parties to the case, nor do we represent the victims, but we have over many years now documented the serious human rights violations at the North Mara mine and have sought repeatedly with Barrick and many of its previous subsidiaries, such as Acacia Mining. We sought repeatedly to try and reduce the human rights violations, urge the company to investigate, and urge the company to provide remedy. Now, they have failed to do so, and so we certainly support any Tanzanian citizen that decides that they would like to try and seek legal remedy in Canada. And that's what 21 Tanzanian citizens did just a couple of weeks ago in Canada. And then I should say a further 2 brave Tanzanians also took legal action against the London Bullion Market Association, a huge London gold market here in the UK. And that case was announced yesterday. So, I think it really does show that Tanzanians who've been affected by the gold mining in North Mara are desperate for remedy and for justice and are taking their cases now overseas.
Since you've been following keenly about the case and how it started, maybe you can just inform our viewers how those 21 Tanzanians were mishandled in that gold mine.
So what we have documented, and I should say it's not just my organization, RAID, but also other Tanzanian civil society groups, investigative journalists, in fact, even a Tanzanian parliamentary inquiry did document serious human rights violations at the North Mara mine. Now, these include people who have maybe gone onto the mine to try and scavenge for gold, or those living close to the mine who have been killed, assaulted, some who've been tortured or otherwise injured, often by mine police. Now, that is police officers specifically assigned to the North Mara mine whose security is coordinated by the police. So we've documented this repeatedly, and the numbers now are quite shocking, actually. So really, we have credible reports of over 77 people who've been killed, over 300 people who've been injured. And I should say, based on everything we've heard from local communities, from village and hamlet chair people and other local authorities, this has now become one of the deadliest mines, industrial mines in Africa for security-related violence. And I think this is what has led people to look for justice and remedy, initially from the company in Tanzania, where they had limited and almost no success. And because of that, now they're turning to the justice systems overseas. And Barrick, of course, is a Canadian company based in Canada, which means that overseas victims can take their case there. It's not easy. It's difficult. You've got to find lawyers. These particular victims have done so, but they're taking the brave step of trying to take legal action against Barrick in Canada for these human rights violations.
Then someone may ask, the police are the ones who committed the torture and the killings. Why then Barrick and not the police?
Well, so 2 parts to that. I would say first we have raised these concerns with the Tanzanian government. Of course, the police are a state body, and it is the Tanzanian government's responsibility to also ensure that they're investigating abuses by the police. And we would certainly urge them to do so, and have done so repeatedly. The police that are assigned to the North Mara mine, there's about 150 of them, they're assigned under a memorandum of understanding between the police and the business corporation Barrick Gold and Twiga Minerals, which is the Tanzanian entity. They have a written agreement, and it is the mine that provides payment to the police, that accommodates them, gives them fuel for their vehicles, gives them vehicles and other equipment, and also coordinates the security with the mine. So local people in North Mara repeatedly call these police mine police. They're not doing any other policing in the local community. And as a result of that close relationship with Barrick Gold, we, and in fact lawyers representing the Tanzanian victims, say the company has a responsibility here. It is their responsibility to ensure that the police that they are engaging on the mine behave appropriately. Tanzanian government's responsibility as well, but also that of the business corporation Barrick Gold. And Barrick should be taking further steps, either not to use the police, or to ensure that the police behave appropriately and are not killing people, injuring people, torturing them, or otherwise conducting illegal behavior.
Let's talk about this case. What is the importance of this case to Canada, since this is not the first case to be presented to a Canadian company? What will be the effect or the impact of this case to Canada as a country?
Well, I think it's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is one of the few rare cases where overseas human rights victims, in this case Tanzanians, are trying to hold a multinational mining company to account. Now, companies like this is the case with many multinational companies, they frequently try to evade responsibility by saying it's the Tanzanian entity, or it's our office in London, or it's our office in South Africa, or it's our office in the United States. And as a result, it's very hard to get any kind of justice or accountability. Now, increasingly, civil society groups and others are saying those companies responsible for human rights violations should be held to account in the country where they're based. And that's what's now happening in Canada. It will be up to Canadian courts to decide if Barrick, as a Canadian company, can be held liable for these human rights violations. That will be up to the Canadian courts to decide. But in this case, the Tanzanian victims have brought that case. And it's very important. There were two previous cases, one from victims in Eritrea who brought a case against a Canadian company that had operated there. And in that case, the Supreme Court of Canada did find that under international law, the company had responsibilities. So we will now see if this case proceeds in the same direction and whether Barrick will be held to account for these abuses. I'd say it's also important for Tanzania because it's hugely important that those individuals harmed because of gold mining operations in North Mara are able to get remedy and justice and to have their day in court.
And then my next question, I don't know if you are the right person to answer, but I want to believe maybe you are privy to those information about that case. What are some of the prayers in that case that the plaintiffs are seeking the court to do in that particular case?
Well, the 21 individuals who brought in the case in Canada include families of those who've lost loved ones. They include individuals who were injured, often who had been shot, some of whom have had life-changing injuries, who will never be able to fully recover. So they're looking for a variety of things. Of course, they're looking for justice. They're looking for remedy, compensation. And we'll have to see if this case progresses. But there are others who say to us they want an apology and they want Barrick and the North Mara mine to change its behavior and its policies to ensure that local communities' rights are respected and that those who live nearby are not harmed by the illegal use of force by the police and security personnel at the mine. Again, as I say, it's up to a Canadian court to decide this now. This case has been launched, but certainly we at RAID have been incredibly touched by the stories of those who've desperately over years tried to seek justice from the corporation who's utterly destroyed their lives. And that's really, in the essence, what this case is about.
And then lastly, this being a very important case, not just for Tanzania, but for East Africa and also Africa as a whole. What should East Africa expect in terms of the state of this case, maybe in the coming days?
Well, this case is likely going to run for months, if not years. I think what's really important for a community in East Africa, in fact, across Africa and the global south, we see how large international, multinational companies operate across the global south. Often they're very happy to follow the rules in their home countries, but are a bit more lax in how they operate overseas. And this case is important because it shouldn't matter where the victims are. What's most important is that a company is held to account when it contributes to harms. And whether that's in Tanzania, whether that's in East Africa, whether that's in Africa, people have the right to justice and remedy when a business entity has been involved in harming their lives and harming their human rights. And I think that's what's important. If Barrick is held to account, and if in this case Canadian judges find for the victims, I think it'll send a signal to many other companies operating in Tanzania and in Africa that actually it's important to follow the rules, it's important to respect human rights, whether they're operating in Canada or in Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Anneka Van, the Executive Director of Rights and Accountability in Development RAIDS, for your time and also for helping us understand about the case and also your insights about what to expect in this particular case. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking to us from Mwanzo TV.
Thank you. Asante sana.
Asante na karibu.